Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Looks like we're having some interesting news with Wisconsin here, where the Supreme Court bans ballot drop boxes, and a lot of great things happening, I guess, for ballots. This is pretty much like a huge win, mostly just due to the fact that we would not have to worry about people, uh, doing things by mail or whatever, and where people can forge it and stuff like that. And I may believe even Project Veritas came out and made a video about it, to where there was a woman that did do the ballot harvesting and stuff like that. So this is a pretty big deal, I think, for actually the correct voting. I still wish we could have names on it, so that way it's beneficial. But what can I say? The Wisconsin, as we go here, the Wisconsin Supreme Court bans ballot drop boxes. Court rules that absentee ballots must be returned by mail or in person, siding with conservative activists who oppose COVID-era proliferation of drop boxes. I don't know if activist is the correct word here. I think that's just mostly just people wanting the elections to be legitimate and real rather than false and fake. So I mean that's kind of like the biggest deal here is when you have problems when you have specific problems where your elections or the things that kind of help elect people are kind of like in disarray and nobody really believes it. That's kind of the problem that we have here, where that kind of has to be fixed. So if it's not really being fixed, then you can't really do much about it. I may believe Wisconsin and Arizona, respectively, are trying to at least fix the election part, because that is the biggest part of our country. And hopefully we can see more kind of changes about this, especially more recommended personal IDs. I know I won't get this in type of California, but there'll be in other places as well that will be doing it. Hopefully. The Wisconsin Supreme Court barred absentee ballot drop boxes outside election offices, handing a victory to conservatives who sought to roll back the option after many voters chose absentee voting during 2020 pandemic-era elections. In a 4-3 ruling issued Friday, the court's majority said that under state laws, an absentee ballot must be returned by mail, or the voter must personally deliver it to the local election office. That's really, really good. The court's ruling setting new requirements for absentee voting comes a month before Wisconsin's August 19th. Clerks last month started mailing absentee ballots to voters for the primary. Wisconsin, which is expected to be a battleground state in the 2022 midterms and 2024 presidential election, has a high profile at races this fall, with Republican U.S. Senator Ron Johnson and Democratic Governor Tony Evers seeking re-election. The Wisconsin Supreme Court also ruled that no one other than the voter may hand deliver a ballot, barring in-person collection efforts by third parties that critics often call ballot harvesting. Yeah, which, by the way, like I said, the Project Veritas came out and said this, and on their little video that they made, which I'll probably post up here soon. By the way, because just kind of get a little brief. Democrats in their rallies argue that such assistance can be a needed service for voters who face difficulties navigating the election system. Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice Ann Walsh, Bradley, writing in dissent, said drop boxes represented a simple solution to make voting easier, although it pays lip service to the import of the right to vote. The majority lead opinion has a practical effect of making it more difficult to exercise it, the justice wrote. Wisconsin voters and conservative activists in the state sued the state election commission last year, arguing that state officials overstep their authority by encouraging drop boxes, and that drop boxes are illegal because state law requires a voter to personally mail or deliver a ballot to the municipal election clerk. State election officials said they didn't require the use of drop boxes in Wisconsin, but advised clerks on best practices. Election clerks installed more than 500 ballot drop boxes across Wisconsin for the fall 2020 election, state officials said. Many states expanded the use of ballot drop boxes during the pandemic, prompting a backlash from then President Donald Trump, other than Republicans who questioned the security of drop boxes. Government audits and state investigators haven't found evidence of widespread fraud that could have affected the 2020 presidential outcome, which I don't really, that's over and done with. So whether it did or did happen doesn't really matter. What is important, though, is that they are actively trying to fix the issue that is ballot harvesting. Which, by the way, if we go to a Pacific area here, then we would see that kind of where everything is says. Now, what I also will probably end up doing a little bit different here is what CNN and what the other news outlets are saying in particular to these type of things. And kind of what people are specifically saying on the whole issue here. And what we kind of have it here is that Wisconsin Supreme Court restricts ballot drop boxes. Wisconsin just allows empty ballot drop boxes. CBS News, Wisconsin Supreme Court just allows empty ballot office, and all this other stuff, right? And we'll kind of just go onto Twitter here and kind of see what's been going on. Today's SCOTUS decision is another in a long line of Wisconsin Republicans' success to make it harder for Wisconsinites to exercise their right to vote, to undermine our free, fair, and secure elections, and to threaten our democracy. That's incorrect. They're not removing your right to vote at all. In fact, they're making it to where you can vote legally and not have to, and make sure your vote actually counts. So, say for instance, even if you're voting for a Democrat for that matter, you will have a more secure place of your vote actually counting rather than your vote not counting. So it's a win for Democratic people too. They just don't want to see it that way. The Supreme Court's decision replaces the discretion that our outstanding local election officials had with rigid rules that create numerous barriers to voting. We have a lot to discuss on spaces today. Wisconsin Supreme Court's decision to prohibit ballot boxes, lots of activity going on in Arizona, and the dangers of the independent state of legislative theory. No, again, there is no actual danger for wanting to have an ID or for the fact of removing ballot boxes to where you could prevent ballot harvesting. That's it. That's all we need to really say. While other states are suppressing the right to vote, Oregon is protecting it. We require every county to have at least one ballot drop box for every 30,000 voters so you can make your voice heard. I like how they say, your right to vote. They're not removing your right to vote. What are they trying to get at here? If you're banning ballot box offices, boxes, in which, by the way, they say that to confirm exactly what's going on. So essentially what it is that court rules that empty ballots must be returned by mail or in person, siding with conservative activists who oppose COVID-era proliferation of drop boxes. Which is not a problem. Just go and vote in another area. Because the Democrats desperately need this in order to be able to hinder everything, right? They need this desperately so that way they can forge the ballots. That's the only way they can possibly win at this point. Because what are they going to put in for the next year of 2024? Biden? Yeah, right. Biden's a lunatic and he's a terrible president. So this is what's going on in Twitter right now. And we're going to see what the Wisconsin Supreme Court says in CNN, the great CNN that does tell no lies and wants to lie to the people. The Wisconsin Supreme Court on Friday barred the user of most ballot drop boxes and ruled that no one can return a ballot in person or on behalf of another voter, dealing a blow to Democrats ahead of a crucial contest in this perennial battleground state. Voting rights groups and Democrats have argued that restricting ballot box offices will make it harder for some residents to vote, especially with those with disabilities. No, because again, you can have people drive you to those places. It's already been available to them. The conservative interests in Wisconsin, meanwhile, had maintained the voting practices employed in the state during the 2020 election, such as the widespread use of ballot drop boxes, violated state law, and opened the door to presidential fraud. The state law does not address ballot boxes, but in the 4-3 ruling Friday, the court's majority said that the absence of an outright ban does not mean they are legal. Ballot drop boxes appear nowhere in the detailed statutory system to absentee voting, Jessica Bradley wrote. The majority ruled that Wisconsin Election Commission, a 6-member panel that helps oversee voting in the state, had overstepped its authority when it issued guidance to local election clerks to allow the use of drop boxes to return absentee ballots in the 2020 election. During the height of the pandemic, in its ruling, the court said absentee ballots can be dropped off by the voter at the clerk's office or another designated site, but not at a ballot box. The justice did not address whether someone can mail a ballot on behalf of another voter, leaving open the possibility of some third-party ballot collection. The decision comes roughly a month before the Wisconsin August 9 primaries and establishes the ground rules for the state's high-stakes election this year. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers, a Democrat, is seeking to a second term of Senator Ron Johnson, a Republican, is up for re-election in a race that could help determine which party controls the U.S. Senate. The 24 presidential contest will likely determine the election outcome in Wisconsin and a handful of other background states. Which you're not winning Texas because Texas just got even more red, so you're not winning that. That's for damn sure. You're probably not gonna win Wisconsin now, and the only places that you're gonna win are like places like Chicago, aka Illinois, California, New York, Oregon, Washington, which would be like mostly Seattle. So you'll win places most likely like with that. Maybe Colorado, kind of depends, but those are the places that you're mostly going to win, right? But I don't think you're going to win in other places. And also, apparently, a million Democrats, by the way, have turned from Democrat to Republican. So, I mean, there's also that. So, I'm not quite sure. They're really trying to say that it's against the people's rights or whatever, when it's not. It's like the same thing as they're saying as the ID thing is against people's rights. No, because everybody has a actual physical ID for pretty much anything. Let's see you go buy a bottle of alcohol without an ID. See what happens. Yeah, not gonna work. Alright guys, that's it for the video. Like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you in the next one.